Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the Courage to Change a Recovery podcast. My name is Ashley Loeb Blassingame, and I am your host. Today, we are talking to Dr. Ken Starr. Dr. Starr is an authority in the field of addiction medicine and wellness. Since founding his clinic in 2002 after the overdose of his brother, he has been committed to helping patients achieve lasting sobriety and improve the quality of their lives. Dr. Starr utilizes medications, supplements, traditional and non-traditional therapies that help people overcome chemical dependency and live the lives they know are possible. His current areas of interest include advancing drug and alcohol detox methods, facilitating long-term recovery, IV nutritional programs for optimal health, and men's health programs. Dr. Starr's passion about NAD therapy has enabled the clinic to become the most experienced provider of NAD treatments on the West Coast. He has introduced nutritional IV infusions to the practice so all patients can affordably and comfortably work towards their wellness goals. Dr. Starr is board certified in addiction medicine and emergency medicine. He takes a personal and compassionate interest in each of his patients and is easily available for patients and their families at all times. Dr. Starr is also the medical director for Lion Rock Recovery, and he has a wonderful YouTube channel that you can find and subscribe to, where he makes videos answering all sorts of questions about ways to treat addiction and particularly different types of medical treatment and biohacking addiction recovery. Please see his YouTube channel, Ken Starr with 2 R's, KenStarrMD, for more information. And I hope you enjoy this awesome episode that dives into addiction medicine and wellness. And any questions that you have, Dr. Starr would be happy to answer. Please see his contact information in the show notes. All right, episode 26, let's do this. Ken Starr, welcome to the Courage to Change a Recovery podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So you are Lion Rock Recovery's medical director. You have been with us. How long has it? Feels like 10 years.
Since maybe 2013, 2014, something like that.
A good amount of time.
Maybe sooner, maybe 2012.
we don't know what year we're in. Well, awesome. So can you give us a little bit of background about give us a little bit of your resume, your professional background?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ashley. Well, I am the current medical director for Lion Rock, and that is a funny story how that came to be, because I had a counselor who was working for me, who was also working for Lion Rock when it first got started.
That's right.
And then Larry's name was Larry. And then Larry, I think Peter and Ian had said, hey, we need a medical director. And then Larry's like, well, I just know this guy. And then they called me and like, yeah, sure. So that was it. So it's pretty unofficial. But yeah, so I'm from El Paso, Texas. And I did my undergraduate at University of Colorado at Boulder. I went back to Texas for medical school and did emergency medicine, studied emergency medicine and practiced. So the first 10 years of my career was definitely emergency medicine and EMS. And I lived and practiced in Eugene, Oregon, where I was really involved in just EMS and pre-hospital care administration, and was a medical director for a lot of fire districts and critical care transport companies. And in fact, Reach Air Ambulance Service, which is out of, I think, Santa Rosa, I was the Oregon medical director for Reach. So, and then when we moved to California around 2010, I was with a group, AR group, and just kind of started, to get into addiction medicine a little bit, which is a whole different story, and have transitioned to addiction medicine the last 8 years now. I still do emergency medicine part-time, but less and less every year.
Oh, part-time emergency medicine.
Part-time.
Moonlighting just as a hobby?
Yeah, just like one shift, maybe like anywhere from 2 to 4 shifts a month.
Okay.
Got to pay the bills. That's all.
It's pretty part-time. It's good. Keep it fresh. So are you one of those people who wanted to go to medical school since you were a kid, like knew what you were going to do? Or
No, I wanted to be a fireman when I was a kid, for sure. And then in college, in high school, I took a biology class that just blew me away. I had a great teacher, like AP biology, and was super interested in that. And then when I started college, I think I applied to University of Colorado, and I applied into the business school and didn't get in, and then got into molecular biology and loved molecular biology. And that was my degree. And I thought I wanted to do molecular biology the first couple of years, and then I took an EMT class. And then I worked as an EMT, and I loved that. And then I got a job in the ER, and then I got a job in an ambulance, and then I was bringing patients to the hospital and talking to ER docs. And I was like, I want that job. So then I went to medical school. But once I started medical school, I knew I wanted to do emergency medicine.
Right.
For sure.
What do you like about it?
Oh, I like the variety. I like the shift work. I like being part of a team. I like the intensity. At times I like the intensity, and I'm a good memorizer, and ER is good for just memorization. Like, if this, do that. If this, do that.
Right.
You know that game you had when you were a little kid, and like it was a big hopscotch board, and you lifted up a cover, and it'd be like an apple, and you lifted up another cover, and it would be like a jelly bean, and you lifted up another cover, and you had to remember where the two apples were.
Yeah,
that's all emergency medicine is. It's like remembering, like, what to do for this, do that.
Right.
So I just liked emergency medicine. I loved pre-hospital care, and I loved paramedic education and EMS development. And so I loved it. I thought it was great. But actually, and I probably would still do it, but then when I moved to California, those opportunities kind of dried up. And the reason is because in Oregon, every single department had its own medical director. And in California, every county has a medical director.
Oh, wow. Okay. So not as many jobs.
Yeah. So I had like 12 agencies that I was the medical director for. And then I moved down to San Luis Obispo, and there's just one county medical director, period. So it just kind of changed. And then I kind of got a little bit burnt out on emergency medicine, and then I started addiction.
So did you know any addict, like you grew up in El Paso? In El Paso, growing up, did you know any addicts or alcoholics? And if so, what did you think about that? Like, what were your perceptions about addiction growing up?
Well, that's a great question. I didn't firsthand. I mean, my parents were didn't have any substance abuse problems, but when in El Paso, Texas, when I grew up in the 80s, my brother. So I had a brother named Sander who was a year older than me. I was born in 1969. He was born in 1968. Anyway, so when we went through high school, like say 7th, 8th grade, it was very popular in Texas. Like everybody was drinking, everyone was smoking pot. Mm-hmm. And of course I did that too, but he started to get, edgier and edgier, and got really into punk rock, and got really, smoking cigarettes and just drinking a lot. And then by say 9th or 10th grade, he was with a totally different group of people than I was. So even though my friends were, partying a little bit, we were in band, and we were, doing well in school. And then he just kind of started to hang out with a very alternative group, that punk rock, skating. And then, so my brother was the first person who had a substance abuse problem. So he started using heroin in high school.
So, okay. So let's back up just a little bit. Were you, a lot of the time we don't know, we get a lot of information about addicts and alcoholics through the media, particularly, I'm sure, in the 80s, where that like this is, a choice that people make. They're bad, they're lazy, they're hedonistic, all these things, right? And then most of us come into contact with someone we love who ends up suffering as a result of alcoholism addiction, and get a better understanding of what's going on, that it doesn't quite fit this like bad person mold we thought. With your brother, it sounds like you guys were really close. If you had perceptions about addiction and drug use, how did your brother going in that direction affect what you believed, and what were your thoughts about that? Did it change your belief system?
I didn't fully understand addiction and change my belief system until I started practicing addiction medicine.
Okay.
So even though my brother was suffering, as he suffered more, we just became less in contact.
Right.
So the last 10 years, I would hear from him once a year. I might see him every couple of years. So we weren't close. And I still probably held on to those descriptors that you described, where, drug addicts really just need to get their life together. It's all self-induced. They're making bad choices. And I didn't learn any better in my medical school training. I didn't learn any better in my emergency medicine training. Mm-hmm. And until I started taking care of substance abuse patients, and then started really getting interested in it, and then reading about it, and then reading the people who wrote this book, and then, getting involved in programming and getting involved in medications, I'm embarrassed to say that I was board certified in addiction medicine before I really understood addiction. I mean, that's pretty late to the party.
No, I really appreciate you saying that. I really appreciate you saying that because like more than you know, because I'm at an MBA program at Johns Hopkins and for healthcare management, and all of my peers are doctors, and a couple of them are pain management specialists and different specialties. And I am horrified with, truly, particularly the pain management ones. I really, I cannot believe the lack of training or talking about this topic. And as someone who, is in recovery and has gone through that, and we have so much information, which we'll get into, about alcoholism and addiction as a brain disease, it feels crazy to me that isn't taught, that this, these people are brilliant. There's, it's not an intelligence issue. It's an information issue. And so I really appreciate you saying that, because I think that because I see it, I see that to be the case, is like a lot of people, until they have extensive knowledge and experience with the population, they truly don't understand. And a lot of the time they think they do.
And doctors are the worst, Ashley, because they don't understand addiction at all.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the whole buprenorphine waiver, right? The government gives out this Data 2000 waiver to get people X certified, and doctors don't even want to do it. I mean, they don't have enough people signing up. Which, thank goodness, that's changed, and we'll probably talk about that. And they're extending that to mid-levelers and physician's assistants, and they're decreasing the patient number limit. They're trying to increase access, but doctors are the worst.
Yeah.
I mean, trying to teach a doctor new things is horrible.
I won't say that, but I'll let you say it.
And emergency medicine doctors, now I'm trying to educate. I play, one of my hats is I try to educate emergency medicine physicians, because I wear both those hats, into initiating medication-assisted treatment in the ERs and into the jails and so forth. So there's a lot of reluctance in ER docs. And I've been in that tribe for 20 years, and I know this is not the place to come. This is not what we do here. Yep. But we need to rethink that, because most patients in the ER are not there for a true medical emergency. You have to do what's right. So, addiction is, doctors don't get it.
What happened that made you shift away from emergency medicine?
Well, a couple of things. We had moved to California. My wife and I and our son had moved to California in 2010. I gave up a great job. I loved Oregon. I came crying and kicking and screaming. I did not want to move, but I said I would. And I started with an ER group in San Luis Obispo that I love the guys individually. I liked everyone in the group individually, but just business wise, I didn't really fit in. I didn't like the business model. I didn't like how they were running the group. And then I just got a little burnt out, right? I'd already been doing this for, 12 years or 11 years or something. And then my brother overdosed and died. So then I don't know if it was just that, but something changed. And I just thought, where are we sending people? Who in town is taking care of drug and alcohol patients? No one, right? What are we doing about this? Where am I going to send people? And in the ER, it's just been okay, here's some medicines, good luck. You're in withdrawal. Okay, well, here's some medicines that could be helpful, good luck. Not ever knowing the other side of that, which is none of those patients did well with that plan. So one of my best friends is an addiction psychiatrist in Portland, and he had been doing some Suboxone. And like most ER docs and like most docs in general, I was like, well, what's that? How do you do it? So he says, okay, that's all you have to do. Just start doing this. So I thought, you know what? I just felt this this compelling thing. It's I have to do this. And it was never even really a conscious decision. I just basically, there was a primary care doctor down the street from my house. And I just went to him. I didn't even know him. I'm like, hey, can I rent maybe your office, maybe couple hours a week? He's like, yeah, sure. So then I just put out advertisements. I got my waiver, did my training. I put out advertisements. This is probably back in 2011. I said, okay, Suboxone, Suboxone prescriptions available, opiate detox, whatever. And I felt comfortable doing that just because, in emergency medicine, we've been taking care of drug and alcohol patients for so many years.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really just, honestly, it's just fake it till you make it. And I had people come in and I was like, okay, let's, take good care of you. And it was just a small shop. And then after about a year or so, I had a very chance encounter with a lady named Juliana Backett, who was in recovery and had a lot of experience with groups. She had been in, treatment coordinator and a counselor. She was like, oh, let's team up and you can start doing groups and you can start doing alcohol patients. And I was like, yeah, sure. So then we teamed up, got a little bit bigger office. She was in charge of programming in groups. And then I just did more medication treatment, and then took on alcohol patients and took on other substance abuse and just read what I could and learned what I could. And I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. And I was just non-judgmental, very approachable, easygoing, take really good care of people. And then it just built it. And then I guess fast forward now, 7 years later, and we're CARF accredited, we're state licensed. We have a 4,000 square foot facility. We're the biggest, probably the largest private provider of substance abuse in 3 counties, right? I mean, the biggest, between LA and San Francisco, we're probably the biggest shop in town. So I love it. It's great. I don't know. I guess it just so happened. And I don't know. I guess it was just an occurrence of like the timing was right because I got into this right before the opiate epidemic really became national.
Right.
There's a lot of national attention. Yeah. So as there was more and more resources and attention being shifted to the opiate epidemic, all of a sudden I was already teed up like, okay, I'm the guy in town. I'm board certified in addiction medicine. And so that was really lucky. And I don't know. I just love doing it, take great care of people. And I think that's really the recipe, right? Is just take good care of people and be passionate about what you do and do the right thing. And I guess we've expanded services since then, of course. So we do more than drug and alcohol now, but that's what happened. It's just meeting people where they are. And there wasn't any resources before me. Patients had to either go to the county to get drug and alcohol, which they would only get if they were Medi-Cal or Sync-Cal, or they had to go away to a private residential program. I mean, there was no real outpatient medication treatment.
Yeah. So I want to touch on a couple things. I want to talk about some of the cool stuff that you're doing, different alternative. I'm super into that and interested in all the alternative things you're doing. And I also want to talk to you because I think it'd be interesting to people listening. I want to talk to you about some of the beliefs that people in recovery or people in the recovery field have about medication-assisted treatment. And I want to ask you some, questions that usually come up behind the backs of the medication-assisted treatment doctors and see if we can get some clarity, because I think whenever I learn more, if I'm trying to understand, when I'm in judgment, I can't, I'm not understanding. So I want to work on some of that, but talk to us a little bit about some of the stuff that you're doing. So you're doing Suboxone, you have NAD, a ketamine program. Sounds awesome. What kind of stuff do you guys do?
Well, the first thing we started doing was NAD. So going back, and so for people who don't know what that is, NAD is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, and it's basically a natural coenzyme that's in every mitochondrial cell of your body, and it's really sort of the fuel for energy production of your nervous system and of your cellular being is NAD. And of course, I always learned NAD is just like your ATP cycle, your pyruvate cycle. You make ATP, you need NAD, but it turns out that NAD is this very powerful modulator for over 400 known processes, from immune system to sleep to anti-aging to oxidative stress to protecting telomeres. I mean, all these other things. So
why aren't we all taking this?
Well, we should all be taking NAD, and it's blowing up. And I was going to say that, when we first started, all of our drug, our only indication was for substance abuse, but now over half of our patients are just wellness. But in any event, the story with NAD is, and I'll try to make it short, but I had a patient, one of my opiate patients he said, I'm going to go do this, brain restoration therapy. And of course, I was very skeptical. Of course, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. What is that? Like little fairy dust on your head or something? And he came back, saw him a month later. He was fine. He was great. He was detoxed, felt great, didn't have any cravings. And he got my attention. I'm like, okay, where did you go? Now, what's it called? So he told me about this NAD program. And I basically kind of called somebody and had to wiggle my way into Dick Medier's program. And Dick Medier runs Springfield Wellness Center in Springfield, Louisiana. He's sort of the father of NAD in this country in terms of refining it and administering it. And I went and I trained with him. And sure enough, I mean, I had several years of experience now detoxing patients. And then what I saw in that clinic blew me away. I mean, if you give IV NAD, it alleviates withdrawal and craving. Like it really does.
Like
So,
immediate.
yeah,
So just
immediately.
so I'm coming in. I am detoxing. You hook me up to this IV, and my that goes away.
It significantly improves.
Wow.
It significantly improves. And I'm not exaggerating, but we were detoxing patients off high levels of methadone, high levels of opiates with very minimal withdrawal symptoms with NAD. And after a period of, say, a week, 10 days, they're walking out feeling great. So it blew me away. I remember flying back on the plane thinking, I'm going to change the face of addiction treatment nationally with this. This is incredible. So we started our NAD program in around 2013 or 2014. And then, of course, we've been doing it since. So, but anyway, we started doing NAD. It's been very popular. We can talk more about that. But then because I had nurses here doing IV infusions of NAD, I had one of my nurses who just so happens, a really wonderful lady who passed away last year, but she was very experienced with just IV nutritional therapy. Like, why aren't you giving, vitamins? Why aren't you giving amino acids? Why aren't you giving glutathione? Why aren't you doing high dose vitamin C? Why aren't you doing?
Yeah.
And I was like, what's that? What do you do? So she turned me on to that. And I learned all about that field. I, studied with Virginia Osborne. I've been hanging around with the gurus of IV, nutritional medicine for the last, 6 years. So of course we started an infusion program and then found out, wow, if I give my detoxers these calming amino acids, it helps a lot. If I give my alcoholic patients high doses of these B vitamins and other things, it helps a lot. And they're feeling so much better, so much faster. So it really took off. And then so we kind of got known as this very unique clinic that's doing natural, alternative medicine with traditional medicine, because I'm still giving benzos or, anticonvulsants and standard of care meds. And in fact, NAD's gotten a little bit of bad attention lately because then it's gotten so popular. Now everyone can just do NAD, and people are going into detox at these, naturopathic centers who know nothing about substance abuse or withdrawal and having medical complications because they don't know how to handle detox and withdrawal with or without NAD. So anyway, then because we were already doing infusions, and then we started our ketamine program, I think last year, and ketamine's been a game changer as well. So now we do all these sorts of really amazing things.
So I am a novice in this area. Ketamine to me is just a good night with some friends. So what
well, you're right.
What are you guys doing with it that we missed out on?
Yeah, well, so ketamine is used medically now for a number of mental health problems, and specifically treatment-resistant depression. So ketamine is profoundly effective for treatment-resistant depression. What does that mean? Someone who's depressed, who's been on one or more antidepressants, they haven't worked that well. I mean, don't forget that only about 30% of people respond to oral antidepressants. I mean, most people don't get better with them, despite some people do. That's great. So ketamine, which has been used since the 60s as a anesthetic, was found maybe, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, to be an antidepressant. Like people would wake up from their ketamine-induced anesthesia and they wouldn't be depressed. So as you know, because these ketamine clinics are popping up everywhere, that ketamine is a very powerful tool. So it not only treatment-resistant depression, but it's very useful for certain types of pain syndromes. It's very helpful for certain types of pain syndromes that are centrally mediated, like fibromyalgia, reflex sympathetic dystrophy, complex regional pain syndrome, neuropathic pain. It's very helpful. And other mental health problems like anxiety, PTSD, all can get significantly improved with ketamine. So we started our ketamine program. But you know what? Ketamine also alleviates opiate withdrawal. And ketamine also helps re-regulate alcohol impulsivity. And so we're using it now for drug and alcohol patients because it reframes their maladaptive decision-making by this central reset.
So tell me, two questions about that. The first question is, what is the program? Do you give it to them once and then they're better for life? They have to take it weekly? Like what is the ketamine and how is it administered?
Yeah. So the ketamine is IV. We use it IV. We follow the main National Institute of Mental Health protocol, which is about 6 infusions. So our protocol specifically actually is 6 infusions over 2 or 3 weeks. So that's 2 to 3 infusions a week for 2 or 3 weeks to total 6. It's an escalating dose of ketamine that's basically weight-based initially that goes up every time. Some of the most recent research shows that only about 30% of people at best get a response with that first infusion. The same with the second and the third. In fact, commonly we'll see people get worse with the second and the third. I don't know why. And then by the fifth or sixth, we have a close to an 80% response rate, a significantly improved response rate.
And this is a self-report depression response?
Right. This is self-reported, but we'll use like a PHQ-9. We'll use something called a mood monitor where people can check in. And then the answer is, so the first question is, it's called induction. We try to do 6 infusions over a period of 2 or 3 weeks. Then the question is, did it work? How well it worked? And how long is it going to last? Most people will need a booster anywhere from 1 to 3 months later. And you're right, it does wear off. It's not a permanent solution. So although it can be a permanent solution for some people because it does stimulate like what's called axonal growth and nerve cell growth. It's actually, you can see MRI pictures of how ketamine like makes these new dendritic spines on your nerve cells reach out. But so some people get a longer term benefit, but honestly, it buys you time. So it's buying you time. It's buying you time to try a different medication. It's buying you time to do more programming or therapy. I met with a group in San Francisco that's doing ketamine assisted therapy, where even just during the ketamine infusion, you can get to a deeper layer. Now we're using sub-dissociative doses. So to go back to your original question, when people are abusing recreational ketamine, most of them are in this K-hole. They're out to lunch, right? There's a continuum. So at very low doses, it's sort of just relaxing and more calming, so forth. And as you get higher and higher and higher up, you can get obviously general anesthesia. So all the doses that we use, people are awake, they're alert, they're responsive. They're not, I'm not going to say it's not enjoyable, but they're not totally tripping out.
Yeah. Now, does insurance cover it?
No. So insurance does not cover ketamine. Some infusion centers have learned how to bill insurance. And it turns out what they're doing is they're just billing for like an extended office visit. They're billing for an IV infusion. They're billing for cardiac monitoring. They're billing like an injection fee, but there's no code for ketamine because ketamine is not FDA approved to use for this. But last March, S-ketamine or Spravato came out, which is a commercially available nasal spray. And really what that's about is that, ketamine is generic. It's been around too long that nobody can make money on it. I mean, a bottle of ketamine is like $8. So big business, big pharma is like, how can we make money on this? So they took the S enantiomer, sort of half the molecule, and they studied it, did some trials and said, we can just use this nasal spray. Of course, up till now, we've just been compounding our own nasal spray, taking regular ketamine and putting it in a nasal spray, and there you go. But again, no big pharma is going to make money on that. So anyway, they came out with a proprietary product called S-ketamine or Spravato, and now that got FDA approved, and that has a lot of strict prescribing requirements around it. For example, the patient never even touches it. It's administered in the doctor's office. The medicine has to stay in the doctor's office. The patient has to be observed for 2 hours. All those patients were studied on an antidepressant, and it's supposed to just buy them time. I haven't used it yet, despite submitting over a dozen verification of benefits and trying to get it, just because their rollout was so bad. Patients to copay's too high, or there's no approved pharmacy to send it to us, or blah, blah, blah. But the best studies show that it either is not that effective or maybe a little effective, but certainly not as good as ketamine. So my preference is, do an infusion of ketamine, right? You do the series and see if they get better. If that works and they get some traction with it, then let's get them on Spravato or nasal spray or lozenge or something else to maintain them. And if it doesn't work, or if they didn't get a big response from it, I wouldn't bother with S-ketamine nasal spray.
Hi, I'm Peter Loeb, CEO and co-founder of Lion Rock Recovery. We're proud to sponsor The Courage to Change, and I hope you find that it's an inspiration. I was inspired to start Lion Rock after my sister lost her own struggle with drugs and alcohol back in 2010. Because we provide care online by live video, Lion Rock clients can get help from the privacy of home. We offer flexible schedules that fit our clients' busy lives. And of course, we're licensed and accredited, and we accept most private health insurance. You can find out more about us at lionrockrecovery.com or call us for a free consultation, no commitment, at 800-258-6550. Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about Suboxone. So Suboxone in the recovery field, what we call medication-assisted treatment, MAT, is mostly Suboxone at this point. Is that accurate?
Yeah, the term mostly refers to Suboxone, but it
Refers
also
to that.
it also refers to Vivitrol, naltrexone, and
Right.
other FDA-approved medications.
From my perspective, one of the things, I was a heroin addict, and in my day we had a bottle of Buprenex, and so we would use that in between, and so some of this stuff was a little bit different, but it was around, and I have to wonder about people who are on Suboxone long term. And I know it's probably a really uneducated stance, for lack of a better term. But for me, I'm so grateful that I was able to get off opiates and not be on them again. And I know a lot of people who were put on Suboxone long term, and they struggle so hard to get completely off of it. I think it seems to be an amazing tool for detox. Can you talk about what is the value and the controversy around, are we just using this to get people addicted to another opiate, to get them on something else? Can you straighten some of those ideas out?
Well, I think if somebody has an idea of what they decide it is, I don't think I'm going to change their mind. But buprenorphine is a life-saving tool. So we use a lot of buprenorphine. I guess the conversation is, say an opiate-dependent patient comes into the office.
Yeah. I
can tell you that of all those patients who say to me, I don't want to do Suboxone, I don't want to do methadone, just detox me. Just give me med for detox.
Yeah.
Here's my spiel. I can do that. If you want to do that, I will do that. I can prescribe. There's a half a dozen medicines that are phenomenal for opiate withdrawal, right? Gabapentin, hydroxyzine, tizanidine, clonidine, lofexidine. We can do that. Let's do it your way if you want. Okay. Mm-hmm. Let's give you detox meds. I can tell you that 99% of the time I've tried that over the last 10 years, it doesn't work.
The detox meds don't work?
They don't work. Those patients don't stay clean.
Oh, they don't stay clean long term.
They don't stay clean. Oh no, the medicines help.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, they don't work.
You're not targeting that chemistry that's been hijacked, right? So here's the thing. I mean, like I have no intention, and I tell patients this day one. I have no intention for you to be on Suboxone long term. Okay, it is a tool. Okay, but here's a tool that a young mother or a professional or somebody comes in who's addicted to opiates. I can say, okay, I can detox you with NAD. I mean, we can do a 10-day NAD detox if you want to do that, because I really feel like that alleviates your withdrawal, it'll alleviate your craving, and it'll give you the head start. So that's absolutely on the menu. But the thing about buprenorphine is that it meets people where they are. They can immediately feel good. They feel okay. We get traction of that neurochemistry. Here's the way I like to think. It took them years and years and years for that neurobiology and that neurochemistry to get hijacked and change, such that it's way up here now for them to feel normal. Okay, when you're in an airplane at 40,000 feet, you don't feel any different than you do on ground. I mean, they need to be at 40,000 feet now to feel normal. Okay, so the thing with buprenorphine is I can get that traction, I can get control, they can feel good. And what's good about buprenorphine, and I'll try to explain this better, is that you're not just trading, gin for whiskey.
Okay.
You're not. Buprenorphine has a lot of properties that make it safer, that make it easier to taper off of than traditional opiates. So the role of buprenorphine is within 24 hours, I can put somebody on a medicine and boom, they feel good. They can get their life back. They can go to work. They can start being honest. They can participate in a program of recovery. They can start to rebuild relationships. They're not sick. They can participate meaningfully in activities. And when it's prescribed correctly, and a lot of people don't do it that way, but when it's prescribed correctly, those doses go down and down and down slowly over time, and we can get people off. And just for comparison, say a standard dose of Suboxone might be like 8 to 16 milligrams of buprenorphine. Somebody comes into a program. I try to get people down to 0.125 milligrams when they're done. And at that point, they're just walking away from it. I mean, so it's part of a program. It does require a plan. It does require an exit strategy. Now, do I have people that do it their own way and do we just use detox? Do we use Suboxone for detox, say a 1 or 2 week program? Yes, absolutely. If we can. Do I have people who've been on buprenorphine for 10 years? Yes. So not that I say you have to be on this for the rest of your life. It's because they say, you know what? I have never felt this good. I feel normal. My life's perfect. I'm not depressed. I'm not anxious. I'm not lying. I'm not cheating. I'm not stealing. I'm not shooting up. Don't make me come off this. So everybody's unique. Everybody has a different philosophy. I've been a medical director for residential programs where we did just have, 2-3 week tapers, and that works for some people. But
you found that it wasn't sufficient. Is that?
I would say, the relapse is definitely higher if you detox somebody off Suboxone, because look, if they didn't get to where they are in 2 or 3 weeks, so my preferred way of prescribing Suboxone, just because I'm going to get lots of questions and emails about this, my preferred way is just get on the lowest amount you feel okay. And when you're rock solid stable, your mood's good, you're not craving, you're not relapsing, your energy's good, your sleep's good, then go down a tick. And that changes depending on the dose you're on. That's probably beyond the scope of this. But, if you're on 16 milligrams, let's go to 14 milligrams. And because buprenorphine, again, it's only partially activating at that opiate receptor. And it's very long acting. You're talking about a 37-hour half-life. So when you tell somebody to go down from 16 to 14, that's easy. They do fine with it. Okay. When you have someone go from 14 to 12, that's easy. And you warn them, look, you're going to have a week. You're going to feel a little irritable. You're going to feel a little anxious. It's going to go away. You're going to be fine. And then it's not a fast program, but it allows somebody to get stable on the medicine and gradually taper off. Now, I'm not going to say that Suboxone withdrawal isn't legit. It's horrible. If you're on 60 milligrams a day and you stop cold turkey, you're going to be sick as snot. But it has a role. It has a role. And I'm sensitive. Everyone comes in differently. Everyone's got a different biology. Everybody's got a different genetic makeup. I have people who can do, 2 or 3 weeks of Suboxone and come off it, and they do terrific. So let's give them that chance. I'm fine with that. But a lot of people don't. A lot of people need a longer term program. Some of it might be, reward deficiency syndrome. How many people are on Prozac 20 years later?
Oh, for sure.
Really, it's like, okay.
The logic is
right.
questionable.
Right. So it's like, have there been any studies on Prozac 20, 30 years out? It was never designed for that, right? The best studies I know showed that a year out, people who were off antidepressants did better. So, there's no time frame. So, and the other thing is, don't forget that, opiates are better antidepressants than antidepressants. Opiates are better mood stabilizers than mood stabilizers. So opiates have all these properties. They're not just pain medicines. So, which is why they're so addicting, right? It's just a pain medicine. They make everything better for the right person, right? Yeah. If you're vulnerable, if you have that,
yes, they do.
They make everything's better. So if somebody needs a low level, 2 milligrams, a milligram
except
of
for digestion.
Yeah, well, that's true. They don't make you poop better. That's for sure.
Or at all.
But, yeah. So if somebody needs a low level of buprenorphine to feel normal, I'm not going to tell them you have to get off this medicine.
No, totally.
But,
but
just know that that's not my intention. And I tell patients day one, look, nothing will make me happier than to see you get stable, get down on your dose, and get the hell out of here. I don't want to see you every month forever.
Yeah.
I don't. I want you to be done with this. So it's really patient-driven and it's patient-centered. And that's the difference. It's patient-centered. So I support the dose reductions. I guide them. I say, okay, if you're on 6 milligrams, let's try 4. If you're on 4, let's try 3.5. Here's your homework. When you're ready for it, here's your homework. If you're going to stop cold turkey 4 milligrams, that's not what I'm recommending. It doesn't go well.
I've learned a bit about naltrexone, which sounds like a miracle drug. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what maybe some stories about what you've seen with it too?
Yeah, well, naltrexone is an opiate receptor blocker. Naltrexone refers to the oral pill, but there's a long-acting shot of naltrexone called Vivitrol. And Vivitrol is approved for both alcohol use disorder and opiate use disorder. And I'll explain how it works. For opiates, it's real straightforward, right? It's a blocker. So once somebody is detoxed off of opiates, you can give them a shot in the ass of Vivitrol, which is a month-long blocker. That's basically actually a 30-day insurance policy. Because once that's in their butt, for 30 days, they are not going to get high. They can do whatever they want. They're blocked. It's an opiate blocker. So
that means that if they were to take a shot of heroin, they would feel zip.
Yep. Once, not 5 seconds after the shot, but several hours later, once it takes some effect. It's actually a chemical compound that absorbs moisture, then peaks about 14 days, and then gradually goes down. But yeah, once that's in them, it's a 28-day insurance policy. So for somebody, say who's detoxed, and the idea is do that shot for 6 months or 9 months or a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And give them some clean time, right? Because they're going to challenge it, they're going to test it, but they're going to realize, wow, that really wasn't worth it, didn't do anything. So that's how it's used for opiate use disorder. For alcohol use disorder, interestingly, it's used because the final common pathway for people to feel really good on alcohol is also dopamine and opiate receptor mediated. So what that means is when you give an alcoholic Vivitrol or naltrexone, it blocks the reinforcing and rewarding aspects of alcohol. So it doesn't affect intoxication, doesn't make them sick like antabuse, but what it does, the way I like to explain it, it just doesn't give them that really super feel good. So what happens is, the way it's best explained to me by patients is, they'll pour the second and not finish it. And the way to think about it is like, if you're not going to because we all have a subconscious relationship with alcohol. And if you're an alcoholic, that feel good, relax, it's fun, I'm checking out, I deserve this. This is how I cope. This is my special place. That is big and powerful and overwhelming. And what's really small and minimized is this is poison. It's making me depressed. It's making me anxious. It's making me fat. I'm socially isolating. I'm compromising my relationships. I'm doing shitty at work. We don't think about that. We just think like, hey, this is good. So when you have Vivitrol in your system, you don't think, and all of a sudden you don't really feel good.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't really get that feel super really good feeling, and you're just going to get fat and depressed and drunk. Like if I'm just going to get fat and depressed, I don't want it. So one of the mantras that I tell my alcohol patients who are struggling is like, okay, every time you take this drink, you can drink. Okay, actually, you can go drink, but before every drink, I want you to say, when you drink, I want you to say, I want to be fat, tired, and depressed. I want you. Okay. As you drink, you're saying to yourself, I want to be fat and tired and depressed. That's what I'm doing that's what I'm nourishing myself with. And, that mantra is really the truth, not the truth as, oh, I deserve this. I'm a professional. I'm successful and I reward myself by drinking a bottle of wine because I'm awesome. And so Vivitrol kind of helps you make that decision.
Okay.
So Vivitrol and naltrexone are both used for opiates and alcohol.
Okay.
Anyway, and in summary, I love Vivitrol for my early opiate recovery. Say we've detoxed somebody with or without buprenorphine or with or without NAD. We've detoxed them. I'd love for them to get that shot in the butt for 30 days because I want them to do it for 3 months, for 6 months, for 9 months, because I know that their recovery is going strong. So it's just an insurance policy. And, you don't have to do it, but I like it. And as a parent, I would love if my,
Oh, yeah.
my son
or daughter
did it. Yeah.
I've seen that naltrexone was being used for binge eating disorder and food cravings. Is that something that you see?
Yeah. We here at the clinic don't really treat process addiction so much. Like, we don't specifically have eating disorders, but there is a medication called Contrave that has naltrexone in it, and I think it's Butrin. So it's a antidepressant that has a stimulant as an appetite suppressant property, and it has naltrexone. So the idea with that is it's going to decrease the rewarding the rewarding effects of eating. So if somebody who has a binge eating disorder also gets a dopamine surge with eating. So the idea is you could use naltrexone and it would reduce the reinforcing and rewarding effects of eating as well. And so, yeah, you could try naltrexone. I know it's used for that. We also even try it for marijuana use because we don't really have a lot of drugs for that. So our marijuana patients, we'll try putting them on naltrexone. And there's some early data that says it might be helpful. So anything that's reinforcing and rewarding might be blunted with naltrexone. So it doesn't block all the opiate receptors. Don't forget there's a lot of opiate receptors, but it blocks the one that's most commonly used in substance abuse. So the question is, well, I'm not going to get joy when I work out or go to the gym. I'm not going to get joy when I pick up my grandchild if I'm on naltrexone. I don't think that's the case.
Okay. Okay.
It doesn't just block everything that's good in your life.
So what did you learn that made you change when, you said when I became board certified in addiction, right? That was when you had this new understanding. Was there anything that you remember? What did you learn that really cemented for you that this was a medical problem?
It's sad that I didn't really fully appreciate the complexities of addiction when my own brother was suffering from it. And I really solved that problem just by distancing myself from him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think understanding that most people with some addiction have, trauma history, emotional loss, so I always refer back to that Gabor Mate quote. You don't ask why people have addiction. You ask why they have pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just, and the reason it's a medical diagnosis because, a medical condition has a predictable time course.
Okay.
Like asthma, hypertension, diabetes. They're medical problems because we know that untreated diabetes causes this, and this. Well, I can tell you, untreated heroin addiction causes this. It's going to result in overdose or incarceration or death. It's a very predictable course too, right? You're going to lose your job, you're going to lose your house, you're going to lose your family. It's no different. So, and there's a medical treatment. So there's relapse in hypertension. There's relapses in obesity management. So I think that the medical nature becomes clear as a physician treating addiction, but it still doesn't help you understand addiction patients unless you understand addiction. So that, for me, I think came late, but I have a sincere love of the field now.
So you think that like learning about how the brain responds, learning about how the brain rewires and all of that, even that, did any of that change?
Well, the neurobiology of addiction is interesting, but I think that it is a medical problem, and I think that there are some medical solutions. But as you mentioned, MAT is not medication as treatment; it's medication associated treatment, right? Or medication assisted treatment.
Yeah.
So, people show up, we can get you feeling better with, X or Y or Z, but you have to do the work of recovery, and you have to understand why you're chemically coping and why you're doing this and what is going on underneath this. So that is the disease of addiction. And that's why it's a medical disease, because it's treatable and it has a progressive destructive nature. And I see it every day with my alcohol patients, my opiate patients, right? If you're a drinker, I can tell you that it plays out for the same way every single time for everybody, right? It's relationships, job problems, DUI, worse, social isolation, doing less things with your friends. There's not that many people with a really hardcore alcohol problem who are doing great at work, who have great friends, who are out hiking, who are in great physical shape, who are meeting all their goals, who are running marathons. It's like, you don't. Maybe you did. And I always ask, what do you do for fun? And they all say things they used to do for fun. But you're not doing anything for fun now if you have a substance use disorder. Anything. Because it's because you're using as a full-time job. Or you can't wait to get them to drink after work. Or you're just looking for, heroin addiction is nonstop circle, right? It's like all your time and money is like, who can I call? Who's going to answer the phone? Can I go out of town this weekend? Who am I going to stick?
It's not even fun. Like you're not even getting high. You're just getting to that, 40,000 feet kind of deal. It's like, it really just becomes a survival situation.
Right. And so that's the role of buprenorphine too. Is that now you can stabilize somebody. Like, I don't know where I read some book that if that vase is full of just using, like if your whole life is just using, if you can get somebody stabilized medically, and then you can start filling that vase up or that life up with community and relationships and job responsibilities and gratefulness and other things, people have less desire for drugs. And this has been shown, as you know, in studies with injection use centers in Europe.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? You can tell people, you can come here, use every day free heroin. You can come every day. You can just safe injection zone. You shoot up here. It's free. It's supervised. And you know what? Almost all those patients, like 90% of those patients over 5 years, aren't there anymore. Because once the structure is provided and they're not suffering, trying to figure out, how they're going to lie, cheat, steal, vandalize, whatever, all of a sudden now they're holding jobs. Now they're going to work. Now they have good relationships. And as that builds up, they use less and less and less and less. So that's the role of medication-assisted treatment. And that's the role. And that's that's kind of one of the stigmas is like, you've got to provide people a way out. I can't take care of somebody who has an active substance use disorder and put them in programming and say, oh, you just need counseling.
Right.
No,
right.
They're going to totally unravel. Right. So that's the role of medication. That's the role of buprenorphine. It's like, we can get them stable on something, feeling good. We can taper that down while we do some programming.
You do some really cool work in the jails. Tell us about that.
Well, there's been really unfortunately, there's been a national outcry the last couple of years about the standard of care of addiction treatment in prison and jails.
Which is laughable, right? Because that's most of the population.
Right, right. So like all these people end up in jail. A lot of them end up in jail. But if you go, up until recently, and probably still in most places, if you go into a jail in this country and say you're stable on methadone, or you're stable on buprenorphine, or you're a heroin user, you're going to detox. They're going to death their treatments. They're just going to detox you. There's protocols for detox. Well, that doesn't always go well. And there have been some bad outcomes. And I think I think it was a federal case out of somewhere in the Northwest. I should know more about it, but a judge ordered that you can't, this is a medical disease and you can't withhold medication. So there's a big role now with jails initiating MAT. And that might mean, look, if somebody comes into jail and they're on Suboxone and they have a provider and they test positive for it, why wouldn't you continue it? Or if somebody comes in on methadone, they've been stable on it, why wouldn't you continue it? Or better yet, people who come in with a heroin use disorder, heroin, who do detox in jail, they're getting shots of Vivitrol now before they leave, because that's what happened to my brother. He was in jail for 9 months or 10 months. His tolerance went down. He got out of jail in Texas, went to a sober living, used heroin and overdosed and died. So if he would have gotten a Vivitrol shot, that would have been an opportunity to set him up for his next Vivitrol shot, his next.
Let me ask a question about that. So if he had gotten a Vivitrol shot, or anyone gets a Vivitrol shot, and they use, right, to try to test that theory, isn't the amount of opiates in the system enough to repress the respiratory system, even though you're not getting high?
No, because you're blocked. I mean, the Vivitrol blocks those mu opiate receptors.
Oh, so so because it's blocked, it can't do whatever the rest of it does to your,
right.
Does nothing.
Now, assuming there's a level in your system, right? So at the very beginning of treatment, like if you get a shot and use a couple hours later, use an hour later, what's happened to one of my patients, unfortunately. Or if you use it, at 31 days and the level's down, then it's going to be effective. But it's a blocker. So if you take somebody who has no history of opiate use at all, right, and then you give them Vivitrol, it doesn't do anything. It has no effect. But if you can give it to somebody as part of a treatment program, it might give them a month. Now, sure, if he would have gotten a Vivitrol shot, waited a month, and then used, then he probably still would have overdosed and died. That's true. But while that had a therapeutic level in his blood, he would have been. He would
survive it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it definitely sounds like.
So there's more medication-assisted treatment now happening in county jails, which is good.
Okay.
It's just more humane treatment. It's more appropriate treatment.
What do you think about the addiction? I mean, so we have the opioid crisis. However, alcohol is still so killing so many people, and so many people are going to jail. That's where a lot of people with addiction end up. Do you have thoughts on what we should be doing in terms of treatment, or ways that we can incarcerate fewer people as a result of addiction and help them? Do you have broader views on how we can get out of this?
Well, fortunately, a lot of cities and counties have learned that you can't arrest your way out of addiction. And I know some cities like Seattle and I think it was some city in Rhode Island, were very progressive in that when people are arrested for substance use issues like DUI or public intoxication or paraphernalia or possession, they're putting them in treatment. They're not putting them in jail. So, yeah, I think it's great that better late than never.
Yeah.
I mean, we've incarcerated, some ungodly number of patients, right? And for substance use problems. So yeah, no, treatment is what people need. They don't need incarceration, because I can tell you, because they come out and then they relapse.
Because they have the same tools they went in with.
Yeah, or they come out better drug addicts, or they come out, it's not incarceration is not an effective solution for substance use. So I think that counties and states and provinces are all getting that memo, and it's cheaper too. It's cheaper to put them in treatment than it is to put them in jail. So yeah, so no, it's great. It's great. And so we have a deferred judgment program here in San Luis Obispo County, where if people are arrested for substance use problems, they get treatment. They don't go to jail. They get a treatment offered to them, or they have to prove some sort of participation in treatment, and they can get it off their record. So it's great. It's good. It's good, and it's late, but I think it's a necessary thing. So I'm glad that the incarceration system is changing.
Yeah, me too. So can you tell us a little bit about where your clinic is, where people can find you, more information?
Well, sure. I am the medical director for Lion Rock, which is awesome. But,
I know how
Lion
to
Rock
find you.
doesn't, you know how to find me by email. But, Lion Rock is not a medication dispensing institution. So
Correct.
it's really been more educational and administrative. But so my clinic is in Arroyo Grande, California. So we're just a few minutes outside of San Luis Obispo on the Central Coast. We're halfway between LA and San Francisco. The website is just kenstarrmd.com with 2 R's, kenstarrmd.com. Our supplement store, so we created a line of supplements called Clean, which is great. And so we've created basically all the supplements that I've used in recovery and detox and post-acute withdrawal. We've kind of just decided what's the best, and we made our own supplement line. And there's a link from the website, but there's also our web store is called getcleansupplements.com, getcleansupplements.com. So that's how you can find me. You can email me from the website, or you can email me at ken@kenstarrmd.com. And yeah, we have a YouTube channel. So I want everyone to subscribe to my YouTube channel because I only have like 180 subscribers. And you can just check kenstarrmd.com.
Ooh, what are you doing on your YouTube channel?
We have all sorts of videos and educational videos, and what's the difference between this and that, and how to get off methadone, and here's what you need to know about Suboxone, and
that's awesome.
Just educational things. It's just Ken Starr MD on YouTube.
Ken Starr with 2 R's, MD. On YouTube. Okay.
So I want everyone to subscribe. Because
everyone go and subscribe to Ken Starr MD on YouTube and check out.
And our clinicians have actually started to post things for recovery. Our counselors have started to answer questions. So, and anytime people want us to make a video, like I'll just get an email saying, hey, can you talk about this? So I'll just give my thoughts on Kratom. Like somebody wants to know about Kratom. So I created a 5-minute video on Kratom, or somebody wants to know about a new drug for detox called lofexidine. So I wrote a blog and created a video on lofexidine. So just trying to answer people's questions. And there's just so much misinformation about MAT, about Suboxone, about treatment, about Vivitrol. Everyone, so it's just great to provide education and to answer questions and be featured on wonderful podcasts like this that really help people learn more about the disease of addiction. And I love the podcast. I've listened to a few of them, so I've really enjoyed it. You do such a good job. I'm honored to be on it. Honored.
Thank you. Yeah, we it's really fun to do, and really, you're probably the same way, where we hear all these amazing, tremendous stories of people overcoming and getting better under insane circumstances or traumas or whatever. And so we have this, wealth of knowledge, but most people don't get that. And so I love that that I can hear these stories and dispense them so that other people can hear all the amazing stories and meet all the amazing people that I've met through this process.
Yeah, there's so many good resources online now. I teamed up with Matt Finch with like opiate recovery addiction support. He's got a great website. He's got 10,000 followers. He's always making videos and YouTube videos and writing books for people. So there's just so much good information, but we really try to simplify and add value to medication assisted treatment, what it is, what it's not, who it's for, who can benefit, and dispel a lot of myths about medications, help people access medications. And there's lots of people who come in who don't, get on any medications, but it's just important to educate even counselors and physicians. A lot of our people who send me, in fact, later this afternoon, I have a pediatrician coming to the office to tour the office to see what we do to help with substance abuse, because she is tasked now with managing like a juvenile hall, and she got recruited, and now she's like, I need to do Suboxone. I don't know how. So she wants to come here to learn how to do it. We were at the American Society of Ketamine Physicians meeting 2 weekends ago in Denver. And, and then people see that I'm doing it using ketamine to detox people. And they're blown away, like, oh, I guess it makes sense, So we're combining NAD with ketamine, which is really revolutionary. Talk about minimizing withdrawal. So I'm really passionate about biohacking recovery. Mm-hmm. And especially biohacking detox.
Yeah.
I love taking really challenging, frustrated patients who've tried detoxing off everything and bring them in the clinic for a couple of weeks and seeing what we can do. We can put on a bridge device. We can give them ketamine. We can try NAD. We can try, little homeopathic doses of buprenorphine if we need to. And so it's really rewarding to see people feel better and detox and get their lives back. And again, everyone's got a different everyone's got a different story, right? I mean, you got to meet people where they are. So some people are on Suboxone, some people can do it without. It's great. Whatever people need is just figuring it out and then providing solutions.
Do you ever detox people off of, medications like Effexor or difficult psychiatric meds that people have been on? Because I know that's something that I see where people, are on that.
Well, that's a great question. I get calls about that. I have people counting grains out of their, antidepressant capsules.
Yeah.
Usually, the answer is usually I don't. Usually, I have some psychiatrist friends who can transition them to a different medication. But the answer is we have and we do it, but it's and we usually use NAD. So those are our NAD patients, right? So we'll use NAD for opiates and alcohol, but we'll use it for antidepressants as well.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I am so grateful for your time and also hope that someday you will get the chance to educate lots of other physicians about, how to treat this and from a place of reputability.
Yeah, right.
Because I think that's really, I think that's really important. Is the next piece of this is disseminating and getting physicians and people in places where they're seeing this to believe that we can A, biohack it, and B, that it's a real thing.
Yeah, it's a real thing, and it's not cookie cutter, right?
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, you can just take this. You need 5 units of insulin. No, you need 10 units of insulin. And there's people who don't need Suboxone. There's people who need to do things differently in their lives. There are people who just need tools.
Yeah.
They need tools. That's why I'm the only medical provider in my clinic. I've got a whole team of clinicians and therapists and counselors and nutritionists and office staff and nursing. And I mean, the medicine's the easy part, honestly.
Oh, I totally agree.
Medicine's the easy part. I can sit down and talk to people, but it's my counseling. We have groups, we have evening groups, we have day groups, we have individual therapy. And that's what I'd love to see. And is people who put the effort in, and if people put as much work into their recovery as they did into using, they would do great. They have great outcomes.
Yeah, that's what I was always told. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Ken.
Exactly.
And we'll get everybody to subscribe to your YouTube channel.
Okay, you first.
Okay, I will.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
The Courage to Change, a recovery podcast, would like to thank our sponsor, Lion Rock Recovery, for their support. Lion Rock Recovery provides online substance abuse counseling where you can get help from the privacy of your own home. For more information, visit www.lionrockrecovery.com/podcast. Subscribe and join our podcast community to hear amazing stories of courage and transformation. We are so grateful to our listeners and hope that you will engage with us. Please email us comments, questions, anything you want to share with us, how this podcast has affected you. Our email address is podcast@lionrockrecovery.com. We want to hear from you.